At Unilever, we had a rule that if you haven't done 100 hours of consumer work, then you weren't allowed to contribute in any meeting. A lot of us talk about the new age is very different from the traditional world of marketing. Guys, the consumer is the same and our brains are still the same.
Is it?
Within a certain band of brands that are acceptable to me, usually you're not able to name more than 2 or 3 brands for any category.
True.
For any category.
True.
And we end up making a decision within those 2 or 3 brands. Marketing can't substitute for a bad product. Fundamentally, your product has to be good.
Yeah.
Now, within that, you're looking for something that you can amplify. At an early stage, especially if you're looking at a new category, then don't take on the onus of building the category unless you are a player with very, very deep pockets.
So say I'm a founder of a detergent brand. Do I need to talk about brand purpose? And if I do, at what point does that conversation become relevant? Hi Vani, how are you doing today?
Very well.
First of all, really nice to see you.
Same here.
And just tell us what's new going on. I know that you are a fractional CMO, external CMO, marketing advisor, all rolled into one, and you work with a lot of founders. What's latest and hottest thing that you can tell us about?
Oh gosh, latest and hottest. I don't know. It's the same old. What do I talk about? I mean, the kind of assignments I get mostly are about either I want to launch a brand, or I'm looking to solve for brand architecture, or we're spending money but we're not getting sales. So, what is it that we're not doing right? Or there are founders who have the humility to say that we're selling, but we don't know who's buying us and why they're buying us. So I think some things are, it's the simple classic stuff. If questioned and done right, that works. And that's the kind of stuff that I most enjoy working on.
Scratch on the founder CMO dynamic once. Like, what do you think? What's been your experience?
Founder CMO dynamic would mean founders acting as CMOs.
No, both. Founders dealing with CMOs, founders sometimes acting as CMOs themselves, founders denying the need for the CMO at some stages.
No, I think the DNA of a founder is to get the business going. So founders are doing whatever it takes in order to get the business off ground. And there is nothing wrong in sort of stumbling along and discovering things as they go along, which is what they do. And then somewhere along the line, they realize that while we have a great product and we're getting some sale, in order to scale up now, we need to do some things differently. And maybe we can make better with whatever we're spending. So it always starts out as performance marketing. And then performance marketing sort of seems to hit a ceiling. And this I've heard very often from a lot of the founders that I work with, that we've hit a ceiling with our performance marketing. What's it that we're not doing right? It's not all adding up. And that's when they, reach out to people like me to say, what is it that we're not getting right? I remember with Cars 24, which was the first assignment that I worked on after Pepsi. They didn't really have a CMO. The guy who's a co-founder, Gaju, didn't have marketing background. A very intelligent guy though, and a lovely person to work with. But he had the humility to say, look, I don't all get it. And clearly we're not doing something right. And that's how I started working with them. And there are so many others. I mean, with the Baker's Dozen, when I started working with them somewhere around COVID, they had business traction, but they said, now we need to figure how can we get to the next level. And they said, we don't know exactly who's buying us and we don't know why they are buying us. If we are able to get an answer to that, then we'd know how we can, scale up, amplify what we're doing right. And that's how I started working with them. So I think a lot of companies start out without, marketing tends to be one of those nice to have functions, especially in startups. And then somewhere along the line, they realize that we need to add some science to this. Also, it's much misunderstood. A lot of companies seem to believe, oh, if we've got a fancy advertising agency and we've got, a pretty logo and some sort of a brand identity and some sort of a philosophy, this is not to put down any advertising agency, but there is a science to advertising. There is a reason why a company like a Pepsi or a Unilever has a CMO. They have a marketing department. You don't substitute a marketing department with an advertising agency. If you were to go to an ad agency and say, hey, I need a communication strategy, or I need an ad, or I need to figure out my marketing, no agency will say, oh, we can't do it. Oh, we're not the right people to be talking to. Every agency, including a PR agency, by the way, will say, sure, I mean, what do you need? You will give you everything. We'll give you an ad, we'll give you an outdoor campaign, we'll give you your full strategy. Everybody has written as part of their pitch deck branding, marketing, brand strategy,
Integrated.
integrated, exactly. All possible words included, okay? Everything we offer, the whole deal. Let's step back, guys. Marketing is not putting out an ad. Marketing is not one article in the papers. But marketing is not, that's not what builds great brands. That is not how Dove came about to being what it is. And a lot of us talk about the new age is very different from the traditional world of marketing. Guys, the consumer is the same and our brains are still the same.
Is it?
So I find this simple logic very difficult to understand. So, would you be able to do the cool tools and the gizmo and all of that is an enabler, to get the dashboard and the tools and everything else that goes into digital marketing. And there are experts to do that. By all means, bring in those experts. But the basic thinking of who is going to buy you, why are they going to buy you, why will you stand out of the clutter, how are you going to make an impression on the consumer's mind, how are you not going to be a transactional product, how are you not going to sell only on price? How are you not going to sell only on availability? Why will the consumer feel that this is the brand that I'd like to buy and I'd like to recommend to friends and I'd like to come back to? Is more than just transactional gizmo performance marketing.
Gizmo performance marketing. I like that word a lot. But so you talked about, like, for example, you took the Cars24 example, right? They are founders out there who have the intellectual humility to say that, hey, we tried bunch of things. Some of things worked and some of them just didn't stick, right? And can you come in and give us an opinion? And those are the folks that you work with. In more often than not, that intellectual humility is absent, which means, okay, what is the role of marketing? You suddenly have to go 2 steps back and like fight a different battle in self. So how do you tackle those conversations?
I think I'm very straight in my conversations, Harinder. I'm able to tell now. I've just spoken with so many. First of all, being in consulting is not easy because not everybody understands what is the role of a marketer. I've had inane conversations with people where people would say, अच्छा आपने कुरकुरे पे काम किया था तो आपने वो लाइन लिखी हुई टेढ़ा है पर मेरा है आप हमारी लाइन लिख दीजिए सर नहीं वो लाइन तो मैंने नहीं लिखी आपने वो लाइन नहीं लिखी तो आपने किया क्या हाँ सर हाँ फिर ज्यादा नहीं
आपने
किया
नहीं लिखे, I'm also surprised. Sorry, go on.
so so there are all kinds of people. There is a company I interacted with. This was in the space of lab grown diamonds. Very long conversations with them, and I thought they looked very respectful. I went and met them, and I was really excited to work on the category. I've been so eager to work on this category, and I haven't landed a brand in this category as yet. But eventually, after all the discussion, when I was so eager to work with them, what it came down to was we have a brochure and we need these 3 lines to be written on that brochure. But that is their total understanding of what marketing is. So I said we'll bring someone on board who can write. I mean, I'm good at writing. It's not that I'm not good at writing. I have written full websites. I've designed newspaper ads by myself. It's not stuff that I'm not capable of doing. But if this is all that you're actually bringing me on, then it's a waste of your money and I'm not the right fit for this job. So, so you see, when you talk to enough number of founders, then you know who has your vibe because you can only do good work with someone who is willing to give equal respect to the work and where there is a good chemistry between both. I mean, if the other side doesn't understand or what value is this work going to be or why do I need it, then you can't do good work with them in any case.
So when you kind of start any engagement like this, right? When there's a brand problem thrown at you, what is the first thing that you put your stethoscope on?
The consumer and what about this can be magnified. So, for example, in the case of Cars24, you see, they were only harping on best price. And there are a lot of brands that sell on best price, including Cashify, by the way. But if you're selling only on best price, then you're a commodity because Anybody offering 5 rupees lower than you would then become a better deal. Then why would I buy from you? Similarly, so for a car, if I'm selling my old car and my neighborhood dealer, my local dealer is willing to give me 5,000 rupees more for my car, then say, chalo, isko de dete na car. So brands are built when you have the ability to charge a premium and you are willing, as a consumer, you are willing to walk the extra mile, or you are willing to pay a premium, or you're willing to make a little effort in order to acquire that brand over something else. So I always look for who is a consumer we can go after, what is it in this that we can magnify, and equally the founder's ability to understand why what I'm talking about is of value. Not everybody does, like I said, but yeah, but this is exactly it. And at the same time, you see, this is something I very passionately talk about. Not every product needs to have a functional differentiator. You may not have a functional differentiator. But if you can make your brand stand for something, if you can make your brand distinctive, if you can make your brand feel enduring, and of course make it available, then you have something going. So I work with some early stage founders. I work with a lot of Series B and onwards founders. But at an early stage, I always say just focus on getting the first 1,000 right, the first 100, the first 500, the first 1,000 right. So, what is your trial program going to be? And even if we were to work on just that without any jargon, without any gizmos, without any, if we just focus on, for example, just yesterday I spoke with this lady from Bangalore who is launching a range of ready to drink CSTs. And she's looking at an energy drink. She's looking at, let me not give it all away, it's not fair. But the stuff that she's launching, I really enjoyed the conversation with her. And I said, she's looking at a small batch. I said, we will experiment as we go along. We don't have to straight away launch. It doesn't have to be one big bang over launch. We'll do a soft launch. We'll focus on first getting the first 500 cans out, then which we will try and do by Diwali. And then we will do another one by Christmas. And then we will come for the season in summers. So even if you were to do a phased launch, but do it in a way where it's basically a surrogate for market research. In a company like a Unilever or a Pepsi, you'd research this. You've done basis 1 and a basis 2 and a CPT and a blah blah blah. Instead, we're throwing it out into the market and seeing what is the retail saying about us for the first 500 cans, and then we go along.
And usually, what's that exercise kind of throw up? Like, does it throw up surprises for people involved? Is it more of the same? Is acceptance a problem? Is kind of internalizing some of those messages a problem?
A lot of people think that just advertising is marketing.
Yeah.
Or just, putting a proposition on a shelf strip is marketing, or just changing packaging is marketing. It has to all work together. I mean, there was a beauty brand that I worked on, and one of the reasons why I feel we did not get the results of the kind that we could have got was because in the entire company, the whole company has to buy into the proposition, and it has to be a concerted effort in the sense that how you take this to market, how you talk about it with, the salon owners, train the salon owners, what kind of visibility do you create at salons? All of that matters. So one can't do one end where, we've hired a Miss Universe and we've got very glitzy TVCs, but the rest of the package isn't coming together. Or there are times when, with all humility, we accept that maybe we got the insight wrong despite research. We may not always have the luxury of doing consumer research in the way that we would like to do it. There are a lot of times when we either don't have the money or the time, and we just simply look at a lot of social media comments and mine all of those comments. And through rigorous analysis of everything that we are seeing on social media, we make certain hypotheses. And that's not a bad thing to do at all. I mean, on Mars Foods, for example, when we were developing a new package for them, we had only about 3 months to develop a full new package and present it to the global team. And we were starting from scratch zero. Like we had no clue of what we were going to launch, why are we going to launch, who are we going to target this at. And we started with just social media. And then we reached out to food bloggers. We reached out to these foodie celebrities, so to speak. And we said, would you give us half an hour on just what are the trends you're seeing around you? What is the conversation like? What are the kind of questions you get from moms? And on the basis of all of that, we constructed concepts. So we went back to some of them who were willing to give us time and said, Dekho, humne ye banaya hai. What do you think of this? And it worked out really well. I mean, on the basis of that, we took those concepts to R&D. We developed prototypes. Then we tested prototypes with real consumers, and we simply just brought them to a hotel and said, we'll treat you to a free meal, but before that, will you just taste some of this stuff and give us some feedback? It worked out really well.
So say I'm a founder of a detergent brand. Do I need to talk about brand purpose? And if I do, at what point does that conversation become relevant? Because I know you love talking about this and you put out a lot of stuff around it.
Yeah.
And I've read most of that stuff. But so I say, in case as whatever.
I'll tell you, I've had conversations with founders where they've started out with saying, I'm a new brand, but I would like an emotional story. A lot of brands have social media agencies because social media is a must have. Of course, I have to be on Instagram and I have to be doing reels. And on that social media, it doesn't matter what the product is, but there are soppy stories, there are reels, there are stories being shot, and stories being shot at a budget of like between 7 and 15 lakhs, for every little story. And there is this whole lot of emotional gobbledygook happening. And I'm saying, but abhi to you're such a new brand. Abhi nobody knows tum ho kya, tumhara brand name kya hai, tum बेचते क्या हो, पहले ये तो समझा दो ना. Are you an umbrella? Are you a bread? Are you a cushion? मतलब हो क्या? Before I get into the higher order purpose or the emotional, I said emotional तो बाद में आएगा. पहले तो मुझे ये समझाओ आप बेचते क्या हो. You see, there is a lot of this misunderstanding. One looks at the Dove sketches, beauty sketches, the Real Beauty Sketches campaign and says, oh, how beautiful. And they think that Dove has been built on this philosophy of real beauty sketches and real beauty. Dove has not been built on real beauty.
1/4 moisturizing oil.
Exactly. For 30 years, they said 1/4 moisturizing lotion. Oh, my skin feels so supple because 1/4 moisture. And the only thing that you remember actually in that commercial or associated with Dove is that milk pour and that white milk pour shot going into the soap. And that's the reason why we're paying a premium for it. So to think that beauty sketches say ये brand बना है and that's why we're paying a premium is bullshit. So, I mean, it's similarly so. For 100 years, Coca-Cola said, drink Coca-Cola. Drink Coca-Cola. It was so simple. I just saw Coke everywhere. And I saw this gorgeous shot of the liquid coming out of a can or a bottle, and it's a close up of the bubbles. And I feel like having a Coke just now. That's it. Spreading joy and happiness and share a Coke and all of that. That is not the reason why I'm buying a Coke. I'm buying a Coke because when I think Coke, in my mind, there are these fizzy bubbles, and or Limca or a lot of these. So, what I'm saying is that at an early stage, simple basics. Think about us as consumers. We're not complicated creatures. When we're looking for a detergent, I'm looking for something that will clean my clothes and clean my clothes well. I'm not looking to buy Ariel because, oh, Ariel is teaching my son how to put the washing machine program, and Ariel is saying share the load. And that is why I'm going to buy. That's bullshit. I'm just looking to clean my clothes, please. I'm looking for a clean wash. So, first tell me that Ariel does a good job at washing. Especially if I'm a new brand. Now, if you say, oh, we've already got market leadership, oh, we're already amongst the top two, and everybody already believes, and to a certain section of the population, we're going to talk about this share the load campaign to make them feel more emotionally wedded. By all means, do that, but know that that is nice for the likes of LinkedIn. It's nice for the likes of awards. That is not the reason why your brand is selling. What's actually getting you business is because you have relevant pack sizes. You have something for every need. You're in the shop. You are regularly servicing the shop. You are in the consumer's mind, and the consumer knows that I will get a good wash, which you have established over the last 30, 40 years. And that is why you are selling. If you were to stop that messaging altogether and only talk about share the load, then for sure it's difficult to hang on to that because, by the way, the Share the Load campaign, a lot of these stories are very long, soppy stories. Media airtime is very, very expensive. And on digital, people are absolutely unforgiving. I mean, I was talking to my Ashoka kids and I want to do a whole series on this. Nobody's looking at ads. I mean, the likes of us still remember ads because we were watching TV. Who's watching TV anymore? Now we all have OTT. Even in my house, I only have the OTT platforms. I don't have regular TV at home. So then where is the question of ads? So then it's just a function of what I see on YouTube, which we are now all attuned to only focusing on the skip button. Like, even if by chance that ad seemed to talk to me, I'm so focused on the skip button, it's almost like Pavlovian conditioning now. The moment it says skip 4, 3, 2, 1, tick, and that's all we're doing. That's all we're doing all the time, you know? So where is the question of that age and that kind of advertising? A lot of the advertising that we celebrate on LinkedIn today, including that red label ad, that long red label, I'm sure it was O&M.
I'm sure, yeah. It usually is, yeah.
That long red label ad with this beautiful song and about how social media is connecting people. I was thinking, first of all, social media connecting people and such a long ad. कोई फंडा ही नहीं है, कोई कनेक्शन ही नहीं है। एंड वो पूरा ऐड चला गया, उसमें पूरी चाय बेच दी, लेकिन चाय बेची एंड वो लास्ट में एक ब्रांड शॉट आया एंड खट से चला गया। यू नो, इंस्टेड ऑफ डूइंग दैट, इफ दे जस्ट सेड have red label tea, have red label tea, have red label tea, have red label tea, that would have been far more effective in my view. Because let's be clear, what matters is when I have to buy chai, which brand comes to my mind? Because how much thought am I going to give to it? You know? And that is actually true for most of the things we buy. I mean, one would argue that for a high involvement product, we would do a lot of research. Sleep has become such an involved category now. I must get good sleep. I want a good mattress. How much research am I going to do even for a good mattress? I say, हाँ मैंने कुछ कौन से ads देखे, हाँ there's something called Sleepwell है, कुछ Kurlon है, और क्या है, स्लीप कंपनी है। अच्छा, ऑन माय वे कौन सा कौन सी दुकान आती है, यहाँ पे इसका लोगो है, यहाँ पे अच्छा इस दुकान में देख लेते हैं, हाँ ये मैट्रेस ठीक लग रहा है, एंड दैट्स इट। I mean, how many of us would really get into, okay, orthopedically, let me check, and then let me go to the doctor and let me compare prices, and then let me see how many layers of foam and spring and whatever else it has? There might be a very, very, very small section of population, and that is not what is going to make that brand or business rich. What's going to make that brand or business rich is for the random types who walk in saying mattress चाहिए, हाँ ये ठीक लग रहा है, आप भेज देना घर, खत्म हो गई बात।
Mm. Do you think marketers indulge themselves with stuff like these narratives? Because you took the Coke example, and they had these nice shots of Coke bubbling and pouring and whatnot, and it makes you feel like you want to have the product, right? It's great, but then Coke has to somehow abstract itself and talk about happiness or whatever platform, and basically just own it. Yeah, you taste great, you make people burp, and eventually fat, right? I mean, that's about it. That's the long and short of it. You don't do all categories have to really abstract themselves up the ladder through the roof? I'm sure the consumer who's going in to buy the mattress is not thinking कि हाँ वो Sleepwell का bounce back वाला मैंने campaign देखा था in which there's Malala or something. I don't even remember that campaign. Like, just give me a good bloody mattress.
Exactly. I just want a mattress that's within my budget. और मुझे आज चाहिए। आप आज भिजवा देंगे? आप कल भिजवा देंगे? मुझे तो अभी चाहिए। आई डोंट नो, आई मीन व्हाट आर माय बेसिक कंसिडरेशंस? इतना इतना इंच का होना चाहिए एंड बहुत ज़्यादा हार्ड नहीं चाहिए, बहुत ज़्यादा सॉफ्ट नहीं चाहिए। कुछ इस पे गारंटी है? एंड जस्ट, आई मीन, वन वुड जनरली थिंक इट हैज़ टू बी, for most people like us, the reality for all of us is this a decent enough brand that I can rely on? I have 2, 3 brands that I'm thinking of. If I have to buy clothes, I'd say, I can go to an M&S, I'll go to a Zara. If there is a Mango nearby, I'll go there. और फिर मैंने कपड़े खरीद लिए, खत्म हो गई बात. If I have to buy shoes, I know I'd bought shoes from Aldo. Those were quite all right. And then next to that, there's Charles and Keith, and yeah, that's done. There are 2 brands I can think of. If I have to buy What else? If I have to buy a mattress, for example, there are 2, 3 names that come to my mind. So within a certain band, I know that within a certain band of brands that are acceptable to me, usually you're not able to name more than 2 or 3 brands for any category. For any category. And we end up making a decision within those 2 or 3 brands. That's it. I want to book a 5-star hotel. I'm going to Bangalore for a holiday. So, acha, what is my budget? I definitely within 8K a 8K a night. अच्छा विदिन 8K अ नाइट अच्छा लीला भी आ जाएगा, ताज भी आ जाएगा, ये वाला रेडिसन भी ओबरॉल थोड़ा ज़्यादा महँगा ये भी इन तीनों में से डिसाइड कर लेते हैं एंड एक बुक कर दिया खत्म हो गई बात। दैट्स इट। सो द रियलिटी इज़ either one of these hotels and has to stick in my head for something very, very specific. That if I were to book a Taj, I will get blah, 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 which is over and above what the others will give. Taj hasn't made that impression on my mind. None of these hotels have made that impression. In general, I'm not able to figure out anything distinctive about any of these. If we have to book an airline ticket, for example, what are we doing? We're going to Make My Trip and we're checking, अच्छा Make My Trip पे क्या है? Ease My Trip क्या है? Let me check Indigo's own website. Am I getting a better deal over there? Wherever I get a better deal, I'm booking over there. At best, what Make My Trip has managed to do is I tell myself, okay, I'll book on Make My Trip because the ticket will come to me on WhatsApp. And so it is easily accessible. And that is it. And that might be the only reason why I'd pay 200 rupees extra to make my trip because I know, oh, the ticket will be easily accessible. When I'm standing at the, at the airport, then I don't have to figure, oh, kahan pe hai ticket, kahan pe book kiya tha, and, am I looking through my email? So
So the marketer's job is salience, like just to be among those 2, 3.
I'm saying that this simple principle, it's very difficult for a marketer's ego to accept that salience builds trust. Salience is quite simply, do I have an acceptable product and am I sufficiently visible? Now, if you want to do a really good job, then what you've got to do is figure out one thing for which you can stick in the consumer's mind with something distinctive. What is that one distinctive thing? So like in the case of Make My Trip, I'm saying either it's offers. When I think of Make My Trip, what am I thinking? I'm thinking it's offers because I'm thinking of Alia and Ranveer or Ranbir. Which one is it? One of the two. They're only talking about great offers. So I'm thinking I'll get a good offer. And the other thing that I'm thinking about is the ticket will come on my phone, you know and that's it. There are other competitors. There's some Clear Trip and Yatra and something else, but I can't think of anything which is specific to any of these brands that tells me, acha, iske liye lo. You know, if I'm an ice cream brand, for example, an ice cream brand could choose to make a hero out of one particular flavor of theirs. So my son will know that for Baskin Robbins, he wants the blue bubble gum flavor. And for just that reason, because he wants that bubblegum flavor only of Baskin Robbins, of which he is a great fan, then because of that, we're telling ourselves, अच्छा यहाँ से bubblegum तो आ ही रही है, तो यहाँ से let me also order my coffee and walnut, which I'm very fond of. And that's how that flows come. So is there that one thing that you can stand for? It could be something functional that you make a big hero out of. I mean, when we think of Starbucks, we all openly acknowledge that their coffee is crap. But why do we go to Starbucks? Only because of the ambience. We're saying, oh, they have very comfortable seating and the place smells of coffee. I like that. And it's going to be comfortable to sit and work. It's really actually a workspace. And I just happen to get half decent or very acceptable coffee there.
Tell me, do all brands need to be distinctive? Or is the need for differentiation overrated? Because sometimes in a category like travel booking, since we were talking about it, maybe I don't want Ease My Trip to stand for anything other than it's just a race for whoever is the cheapest for the same commoditized product. Maybe certain categories are supposed to act in a certain way, and that's where the brand marketer's job gets severely limited. And then it's more about mental availability than kind of distinctiveness or associations or some of the other indulgences that us marketers busy ourselves with.
See, if you're not standing in the mind for something distinctive, then you are a commodity. Because now what is happening with Ease My Trip or Clear Trip or Yatra or whatever the various other trips is that those are only getting, if at all, I go get myself a ticket from there, it will only be because, oh, for this sector, Delhi, Bangalore, the same flight on Ease My Trip, I found it at 500 rupees cheaper. then if it has to be then significantly cheaper for me to be able to book. If it is a difference of only $100, I might tell myself, I'll still buy it or make my trip. Only because their interface is reliable, and the notifications that I get on cancelled flight or delayed flights, etc., are reliable. I'm sort of comfortable with that. There's Amazon and Flipkart. There's no difference. They're all both, or Swiggy and Zomato. I'm just comfortable with the Zomato interface. I know Zomato fleeces. I know I'm paying a ton more money. And I know that there are other comparable platforms on which I can get the same thing cheaper. But I just like the interface. It's just comfortable. I've gotten used to it. And so I'm ordering on Zomato again and again. Similarly, so for Amazon, for a lot of us who are using Amazon, why is it? Because it's just comfortable.
Muscle
Um,
memory.
it's muscle memory. But that muscle memory has been created because they offered you fundamentally something that was better than a competitor. I mean, what advantage does Amazon have over Flipkart? Flipkart also has a broad range. I don't know. Maybe Amazon has a better range than Flipkart. I don't know. But Flipkart's user experience is not as fluent. So a lot of times, you see, marketing can't substitute for bad product. Fundamentally, your product has to be good. Now, within that, you're looking for something that you can amplify, whether a functional feature. And if all functional features are dead parity to competition, then you're looking to make a hero out of something, or say it in a new, refreshing way, or present it in a new, refreshing way to the consumer, that you can stand and own that attribute more strongly than any other competitor. What did Sony Bravia do when every color television is talking about color brilliance? You walk into a chroma showroom and every brand, "Aap ye dekhiye, aap ye dekhiye," you're like sorcered, because every TV is looking that, yeah, this looks good, and this looks good, and this looks good. And and which one do you finally buy? Oh, I trust Sony, and so I'd buy it. Or what Sony has done is that it has created this impression in my mind that I deliver color brilliance like no other. Now, the naked eye might not be able to tell the difference in color brilliance. This looks as good as that or that or that. But for the longest time, Sony has been telling me color like no other, color like no other. So now my brain has been primed to believe, oh, the best color brilliance I will only get from a Sony. And so I'm paying a 25 grand premium and buying that Sony, because my brain is saying, oh, if you didn't buy Sony, then you haven't bought the best. And that's what the power of a brand is. It's gotten me to shell out more money. A lot of times, as smart people, forget consumers, forget marketers, as smart people, today there's all information available on the net. There are influencers who will deconstruct every product and who will tell you exactly what's good or bad. You can look at the reviews, you can compare features. And after comparing features, even after rationally knowing that this phone is exactly the same as another phone, that two brands of TVs have been made in the same factory, on the same factory line. And the only thing that's changed is the brand. Yet I'm telling I only trust a Sony. This, what is this brand called? View? VU? I don't want this in my house. They're telling, oh, it's come the same factory. It's exactly the same features. और यहाँ पे आपके 25,000 रुपए बच सकते हैं. No, I don't want that. I think I'll just go with this. By the way, इस पे better service भी, no, I think I'll just go with the Sony.
Is because avoiding an error or because of the associations with the Sony brand manager put into your head? What was it?
Because the Sony brand manager has put into my head that Sony delivers color like no other. Volvo says that if I have to buy a car for my son, I tell myself I'm only going to buy a Volvo. Why? Because a Volvo is safety. I want my child to be safe. So when he starts driving, I want to buy him a Volvo. So there might be a BMW and there might be a Land Rover and there might be, I don't know, whatever else that might actually technically be a superior product
Or a safer product?
or a safer product, you know? But Volvo has made me believe that it is the safest. And if I am looking for a safe vehicle, it's like, don't they say this in, there are these studies on Red Bull. The driver enters a car with the Red Bull logo painted on it, and you just start driving faster. Why? Because the brand has created the brand has primed me to believe that if I'm sitting in a Red Bull vehicle, Red Bull is about energy and speed and thrill and high performance. And so I'm going zzz because it's Red Bull. I mean, if I was thinking of of a Ferrari, then if I were to buy a Ferrari, then it's unlikely that I would, I would think of the Ferrari only because I want to go on long drives and, you know, and languidly enjoy the flowers and the goat and the sheep and whatever else and be sit with a Ferrari. You're imagining, a deserted road and you're going zzz.
I get what you're saying, but there are certain categories which don't allow you to do that, right? Where, for example, the Sony brand manager had the opportunity to be able to do so. Let's just take EVs, for example. If you put it on a pyramid, right at the bottom of it, you're fighting.
EVs.
Yeah, EVs, right? So at the bottom of it, you're fighting consumer perceptions, barriers to purchase, which are for the category,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Then is the functional conversation कि मेरा EV better है.
हाँ.
Then is the emotional conversation. This is
Correct.
what I stand for as a.
Correct.
वो ऊपर ही नहीं पहुंच पाते.
Correct.
नीचे ही बात खत्म हो रही because they're still fighting battle number one.
Correct.
So for a brand like that, which is not able to prime you in the way that Sony was able to prime you, what does that brand manager do?
So, first of all, an EV vehicle, if I'm an EV brand manager, I will not take on the task of first convincing Harinder that, oh, you should buy an EV vehicle. Let's say Harinder has always bought a petrol vehicle.
Yeah.
So now it would be stupid for me to take on the task of first convincing you that EV is the way to go and then tell you, oh, within EVs, please buy me.
Okay.
So first I will go to a Harinder who already believes that EV is the way to go. Okay, so which means I've segregated everybody who is a non-EV. Dear EV set, all of you who are looking to buy an EV vehicle, please come this side. Now I'm going to have a conversation with you. I'm now going to tell you, amongst EV vehicles, why am I the superior choice?
But the time is super limited, no? Like you won't be able to segregate beyond a point.
You see, how do you segregate? It's not as if people are physically walking to one side. You are segregating by talking to, in crafting the message in such a way that it's only those who are already EV inclined are receptive to your messaging. Those who are not EV inclined are in any case shutting you out. Somebody like me, for example, who believes EV is not for me. I'm not ready for EV. Even if I were to see an EV ad, for me, it's just noise. I'm not even looking at it. My brain is already shut. The brand manager doesn't have to worry about me. Now, in order to get scale, of course, you need reach. As part of that reach, that message is reaching me also. But I'm not going to be buying the EV. If, however, I was EV inclined and I am looking to shift to an EV, now I need the brand to tell me, you know what? Amongst EVs, you buy this, it gives you either the best mileage or it's the easiest to charge or it is functionally superior. At that time, you see, because the brand, the category, not the brand, the category and the consumer is in itself a very, very nascent stage. I wouldn't worry about emotional propositions at all. That would be an utter waste of time. It would be an utter waste of money. At this stage, I have to amplify some functional attribute, which I believe is going to be important enough for the consumer to value and even pay me a premium on. And at this early stage, own that functional attribute so single mindedly, so strongly that when this category grows,
Yeah, I stand for that.
I stand for that and I stand for something that matters most to those who are buying EVs.
Like a safety or a cost of
Like
ownership
a safety, or I mean, if I'm a toothpaste, no cavities, I clean brightest. Now, everything else is a nice to have. But the must have, that Colgate has taken away. Because Colgate for the longest time has done exactly this. Addressed the concerns of mothers and said, cavity nahi hogi. That is my number one concern. Everything else, oh, it'll also go to the sides of your teeth, oh, it'll also do this, that's all nice to have. And that others can come into. So at an early stage, especially if you're looking at a new category, then don't take on the onus of building the category unless you are a player with very, very deep pockets. Landed unlimited money in funding and your investors are saying, please go build this category. You have unlimited money, then by all means go do that and then take the lion's share of that category that you're building. But in all other cases where monies are frugal, you don't go build the category, you try and take a share of those who are already inclined.
So let's shift gears very quickly, right? And let's talk about what are young marketers today lacking?
What are young marketers today lacking? I would say there is a lot of noise about performance marketing, the pressure to get on to digital without understanding the basics. And by all means, you can't not familiarize yourself with mobile marketing, digital marketing, and everything that is required to get the consumer's attention. But don't forget the simple things about your, I mean, one where you look at your own behavior. Why is it that you end up buying one brand over the other? And this is an exercise that I do with my students. You know, what is the stuff you're buying? What is the stuff you're stopping at and looking? What is the stuff that you're discussing with friends? And why are you doing that? You know, if you were to just analyze even superficially, you'd know that it is not just because the ad appeared on your feed. And if the ad appeared on your feed, then it could seduce you once into impulsively buying. But then that's still a transaction. The brands that actually stay on are those that have left an impression on my mind and have stood for something. So get that right. And I think that kind of fundamental foundational thinking is of value today.
So if I'm 23, what should I learn, do, read, listen to be able to do that?
Read Seth Godin, read Byron Sharp, read Philip Kotler as well. Read Archer, read all of these big guys, who fundamentally taught us marketing. There is no shortcut to that. And then on top of that, acquire the digital and other skills necessary. But make sure that when you're applying the tools and when you're applying, whatever you might learn, do it with the lens of who am I talking to? What is the proposition that at the simple basics of marketing that were learned at B schools. I mean, what we learned at B schools is not all redundant. What we need more of in B schools is more practicing professors. We don't need, the problem is that most B schools today are still very, very academic. I'm not in any way undervaluing or undermining the value of what one learns theoretically from the books. By all means, we must have that foundation, but it must be complemented with what goes on in the real world. Today the problem is that I talk to my own students at Ashoka, for example, and they think that you land from college straight into the strategy chair and you're only sitting and doing ads on Canva, and that's what builds brands. That's not what builds brands. Today, you still need to do the simple basics. At Unilever, we had a rule that if you haven't done 100 hours of consumer work, then you weren't allowed to contribute in any meeting. And I think that's brilliant. It sounds very old fashioned, but that 100 hours of consumer work, if you're a D2C brand only, first of all, D2C itself is very, very loosely used. Just because you're on Amazon doesn't make you D2C. But even if you're a digital brand only, then observe what people are doing on their phones. Go and speak, go and observe, go and do, spend time with consumers, spend time with, I mean, what else is the consumer? There is no substitute to that. Unless you understand that, you can't be sitting behind a computer screen and making pretty ads on Canva, and thinking that if I add the right hashtags and, and do some performance marketing, that I'm going to be building a brand. That is not what marketing is about. But very often, this is all that kids believe, that this is what marketing is about. Even if you're a digital product, you've still got to go to the shop and you've still got to see what are people in the real world actually talking about, because your competition is there. And that's where you build an understanding of the category. It could be whatever your product. If you're a software, if you're a compensation software, then go speak with CHROs, go speak with those who are making decisions, go speak to their, to the juniors and see what is the discussion that happens. Speak to other corporates, speak to executives who are actually interacting with that or who have any interaction with that product, and ask them what is it that they actually face. And this I insist on for absolutely every product there was a video conferencing giant called Chorus Call that I worked with, and there was a ton of information that I got from the company, but I still insisted on speaking with company secretaries, with CIOs, and with CEOs, and we were able to get time, and I did over 12 stakeholder interviews to understand if they are paying between 20 and 30 lakhs for a single meeting for a video conferencing platform, which they could otherwise get free on Zoom. I mean, Zoom is much cheaper. They could get on a Gmeet or whatever else. Why are they doing that? And what goes on in their minds? Because you've got to understand that unless you get to the bottom of that, you see, for a company secretary, what matters? That shareholder meeting could determine stock prices fluctuation, and it could have implications on his job, and he may not be able to tell you that, but when you speak with him, it will be easy for you to gauge that. That as a CEO, my expectation from my CIO and CS, one of my expectations would be that the shareholder meeting will go really smoothly, and so I want my meeting to go exactly as planned. And that is why I will not rely on a do it yourself platform, and I will rely on this. A lot of insights and nuggets you get when you interact face to face. And if you're not able to do it in a physical setting, we're not able to face to face, and at the very least do catch ups with consumers on a screen. I mean, across the video screen with the camera on, because body language and facial expressions tell you a lot. And today in this video world, I find that even when companies are pitching to you, they're doing that with their cameras off, and I can't understand that.
So you've got two amazing things from this. Get the basics right and do a lot of consumer work.
Do a lot of consumer work, and the consumer work has to be done right. I have a lot of examples of consumer work done badly.
I'm sure they are, yeah,
Yeah.
but that's a great note to kind of round it all out. Thank you so much for the conversation, Vani. I really, really enjoyed this, and thank you so much for your
I
time.
didn't ramble on
We loved all the
more
ramblings that
than
you did.
I should have.
No, we loved all the ramblings, and they were gems of wisdom in what you said. Thank you so much
Thank
for your time.
you. Thank you,
Thanks, Vani.
Harinder.